Hey, great to have you here. So today I'll be talking about the new horror comedy, Death of a Unicorn. When the trailer for this film first dropped, I was super excited and thought this could be a really original idea for a comedic creature feature similar to last year's Abigail. However, as some of the review scores started to come in, I was bummed to hear that most people didn't like it. I almost let that feedback have me skip out on seeing this film, but I figured I'd go check it out myself, going into it with low expectations, and I'll say I left the film somewhat mixed. As far as the casting goes, Will Poulter really shined here as a standout performance, playing the kind of obnoxious son and giving us the best humor throughout the film. I saw a lot of people criticizing Paul Rudd in this movie. I thought he did fine. It's not his best movie by any means, but I thought he played the career-focused dad role pretty well. Jenna Ortega did alright, playing the role of a daughter who has a somewhat broken relationship with her father. I know some people have pointed out that she plays this role pretty frequently, but I thought she was fine too. Did her character know a little bit too much about unicorns in a short amount of time? Probably yes. And Anthony Carrigan's probably the other character that I would say had some really good funny moments throughout the film. As far as the plot goes, the concept of a killer unicorn was probably more interesting than what we got ultimately here. They could have done some more creative things with the direction of the film, especially in the second half, but it mostly just turns into a monster movie that steals a lot of moments from Jurassic Park. The unicorn even has a raptor claw in its hoof, and chases them around the house like the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park 1, and even the entryway staircase looked like the one from Jurassic Park. I really wish the movie leaned a little bit more into the comedy side of things since we mostly abandoned that at one point, and instead opt to start slowly killing off characters. The film was also riddled with CGI, which didn't look the greatest, and I'm not sure how that's going to age going forward. I would have appreciated if they included a few more practical effects to go alongside that CGI. Now, looking at what happened in the movie, and just as a heads up, I will be discussing spoilers here, so warning there. The movie starts off with the simple premise of a father taking his daughter along for a work trip, in which he's trying to gain the favor of these wealthy elites to set up him and his daughter for life. Our two leads here, Ridley and Elliot, played by Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, are driving to this estate when suddenly they hit a unicorn, hence the title. I also wonder if the name Ridley may be a reference to Ridley Scott since he did Alien, and it's kind of a creature feature as well, so maybe some referencing there. They get out of the car and go up to the unicorn, and Ridley winds up touching the unicorn's horn and goes into this acid trip-like trance where she just sees a bunch of colors. It almost looks like she's seeing the entire universe here. We don't actually see it, but it's presumed that she actually sees her mother here, who has previously passed away. And I'm kind of wishing they did that a little bit more throughout the film, as far as when they have this universe thing that they're seeing through the unicorn, they don't really show us anything. They have the characters be like, oh, I saw mom. It's like, why don't you show us that as well instead of just showing us all these colors on the screen? It feels like they could have made the relationship there a little bit more impactful that way. And while she's out of it, Paul Rudd winds up hitting the unicorn in the head, trying to kill it and put it out of its misery. As he's hitting it, the blood of the unicorn winds up going everywhere, including on Ridley's face and Elliot's eyes. And due to fear of getting in trouble, they wind up throwing the presumed dead unicorn in the back of the car. And here's an example where I feel like a lot of conveniences took place. Most actions and scenarios came about through valid reasons, but it felt awfully convenient. Like he winds up putting the unicorn in the car so he wouldn't get in trouble for harming the wildlife, but it feels like most people would wind up just putting the unicorn further in the woods and placing it a little bit further so it wouldn't seem like a car hit it. Either way, they show up to their business meeting and we're greeted with this wealthy couple, Belinda and Odell Leopold, their son Shepard, and a handful of other aides within the home. After some dialogue between Elliot and the Leopolds, Ridley winds up storming off to the bathroom, which she somehow already knows where it's at. And I will say, if I botch her name throughout this review, apologies for that. I feel like I keep wanting to say Ripley, but it's Ridley. But here's where we really start to see the magical powers of the unicorn. Earlier in the movie, we see Ridley with acne on her face. And when I first saw this, I was like, okay, cool, they make her look like a real person. But then I learned that this was actually just a plot device, pretty much showing us that her skin wound up getting cleared up by the unicorn's powers, alongside improving Elliot's vision, since for some reason, when he killed the unicorn, he wound up taking off his glasses, so blood wound up getting in his eyes, which wound up healing his vision. And we get a few examples here of Elliot's character, as far as showing us what motivates him. He's kind of your typical dad who focuses on his career and pleasing his boss to the detriment of his relationship with his daughter, which were shown numerous times throughout the film. But eventually he does see his car shaking and tries to give an excuse to leave. However, it's too late and everyone notices the unicorn in the car, right before one of the employees, Shaw, winds up shooting it. It felt pretty obvious at this point that the father, Odell, who was dying of cancer, was going to try to heal himself with part of the unicorn's horn, which sure enough he does, and he winds up getting better. From there, the family wants to capitalize on the discovery. They originally pitch it as saving humanity, and eventually it sounds like they're going to actually prioritize giving the magic healing powder to prominent figures in their community that they actually like. We even have a scene at one point where Ridley tells her father, these people wouldn't have saved mom. While they're trying to reproduce this cure, Ridley's off researching on her own on the history of unicorns, and here she kind of plays your typical magically knows everything that's going on type character, while the rest of the cast obnoxiously plays more of the ignorant dumb people in power role. She repeatedly tells her dad and the rest of the people in this house that this is a bad idea, but despite that, they all wind up continuing to ignore her. And eventually here we get a tonal shift within the film, and it becomes less of a comedic film and more of a creature feature type horror film. And I swear, there's probably 10 different Jurassic Park references here, and I probably didn't even catch them all. The obvious one that we already saw to this point in time was the wealthy characters trying to monetize this rare species, like we got in the not-so-great Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Not to mention Tia Leone, who plays the mom in this movie, is from Jurassic Park 3. But they also touched on the other films from the Jurassic Park franchise. It felt like some of the first one and mostly the second one. We eventually start hearing noises and see lights coming from outside. And at this point, having seen Jurassic Park 2, I'm thinking, okay, Mom Unicorn and Dad Unicorn are going to be really mad and come kill all of the characters. We have the two scientists moving the dead baby unicorn through the hallway, and we see a shadow of a large unicorn on the outside, and a pretty epic roar from them, and they're definitely not happy about what happened to the baby. The adult unicorn winds up impaling the male scientist, and then all chaos breaks loose, and we get a few scenes of running around in the courtyard and in the home. Once again, we get another Jurassic Park reference here, with Ridley in the car with her flashlight, similar to Jurassic Park 1 with the kids in the car. And then we have Elliot outside the car carefully navigating around it. Eventually they shoot one of the adult unicorns and it runs back in the forest. And then they get this brilliant idea to go after it in the middle of the pitch black night just because they want its powers. And as expected, a couple more people are killed off here, and we're mostly just left with our main cast. We then get a scene with Odell Leopold, and he's surrounded by the two parent unicorns. And immediately I'm thinking, okay, Jurassic Park 2, they're surrounding him, they're going to wind up throwing him up and splitting him in half. They don't wind up doing that here. Instead, Odell winds up trying to touch one of the unicorn's horns, and the horn winds up going through his chin up to the back of his head, killing him there. And then we have the remaining characters realize they need to give the baby unicorn back to the parents, where once again feels like a Jurassic Park 2 reference. Belinda and Shepard, the mother and the son, kind of do the typical rich people thing and say, okay, you guys need to help us get out of here. They decide Griff, played by Anthony Carrigan, who's like one of the butlers in the home, to go open the door to the outside, while Dr. Badia, the female scientist, should bring the baby to the outside for the unicorns. They wind up moving forward with that plan, and sure enough, here we finally get our Jurassic Park 2 rip in half scene, with the female scientist getting torn into two pieces. I realized her character having this done to her was probably more fitting than Odell Leopold, because in Jurassic Park 2, Eddie Carr was a good guy trying to save them, so similar context here with this character. They all wind up running back in the house, and we have Shepard, Will Poulter's character, continue sniffing and consuming the unicorn powder. After having done so, he's gotten a little bit smarter, it seems, and says they need to offer Ridley as a maiden to the unicorns. Ridley agrees they need to do that, but Elliot says no, that's not going to happen. Eventually, the unicorns break into the house, and we have Belinda Leopold up against this wall in a position that feels like she's definitely going to get impaled through the other side, and sure enough, she does. While she's being killed by the unicorn, she winds up grabbing this oxygen tank and wants her son to blow it up to kill the unicorn. But I guess he's so greedy that he doesn't want to do that and kill the unicorn. He wants to use it for leverage later on, so he just lets her die there, and her intestines get all ripped apart. Eventually, we learn that Elliot kept the baby unicorn horn that the scientist removed earlier, and that's why the unicorns are still angry at this point. He decides he's going to be the hero and let his daughter escape while he leads the mom unicorn out into the forest. While Ridley's leaving, Shepard winds up stopping her and says she's going to wind up serving as a trap to capture the unicorns. Since they seem to like her, and I guess there's some lore around her being innocent and then being attached to her and having that connection since she touched the horn of the baby earlier in the movie. And sure enough, we have the father unicorn show up here and land on Ridley's lap, and then Shepard ties it up. And somehow Elliot shows up to the scene as he's now guiding the mother unicorn. Why did it not kill him? I'm not really sure there. I don't know if we want to say that he's related to Ridley and they like Ridley, if that's the relation there. Not really sure there, but they wind up not killing him. And then Elliot goes up to Shepard and stabs him with the unicorn horn. And then in response, Shepard stabs Elliot with one of his arrows. And at this point, I'm like, what is happening? We're just stabbing and killing each other at this point. We then have the father unicorn get loose and wind up kicking Shepard and killing him. Meanwhile, we get a dragged out scene of Elliot dying. But don't worry, the unicorn family winds up creating this magic healing ball with their powers. And they revive Elliot, and they wind up reattaching the horn for their baby as well. And the baby wakes up and now is alive again. And then the movie pretty much ends with them being driven off by the police with Griff following in his car. And then the unicorns come running up next to the car. And they give some look to Elliot as if they're telepathically telling him and Ridley to brace for impact. So they kind of duck down in the back of the cop car as we fade to black with the presumption that the unicorns crashed into the car to set them free. And that's how the movie ends. So overall, it does get a bit silly, and I realize it's not meant to be taken super seriously, especially given the plot and the caricatures that are used here. But overall, was it as bad as I thought it was going to be after hearing all the negative feedback? Probably not. But was it a great movie? Also probably not. For an overall rating here, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. It's not a film I think you have to rush out and go see in theaters, but if it happens to be on TV or when it's streaming down the road, it's definitely something you could turn on and have a good time with, especially if you go into it with a little bit less hype. But those were my thoughts on the film. What'd you think? How would you rate it? What parts did you like or dislike? Sound off on all things Death of a Unicorn down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.